Every Star Trek episode that was ever broadcast, there was a lot in every episode. And boys, this episode had a lot. I've gone back to this. I've literally watched this episode. It's got to be 1,000 times. And now with the revised special effects, the better graphics, the improved visualization, colors, it really stands up. Now, when I was growing up, the term running amok wasn't as popular until this came out. Amok Time, the season 1 premiere, for many, the best episode of Star Trek ever. Sitting on the Edge of Forever and some other key ones. But boys, what a cast, what a plot, and what an outstanding cast working with the guest cast in this tremendous movie. Well, it is a movie. It's more than just an episode. It could be a big screen movie. Still, it should be redone as a big screen movie. Now, in Amok Time is the second season premiere episode of Star Trek. It was written by the great sci-fi author Theodore Sturgeon, scored by Gerald Fried, and directed by Joseph Bevney. It first aired on September 15, 1967. The episode features First Officer Spock returning to his home world for a brutal Vulcan wedding ritual. It's the only episode of the original series that depicts scenes on the planet Vulcan. Basically, what's going on, Spock is out of sorts. We don't know at the time when he's out of sorts that he's horny to go with his betrothed or child bride, like a kind of an Indian ritual. And it was just now it's just tremendous. It was the first episode to air, though the fifth by production code of season 2. It featured the first appearance of Ensign Pavel Chekhov as the ship's navigator. It was also the first episode to list DeForest Kelley as Dr. McCoy in the opening credits, and the first episode broadcast in the series' new time slot of 8:30 p.m. on a Friday night. Big mistake, because most people that were watching the show were out of the house by 8:30 Friday night in the States, or 9:30 in my part of Canada. This is the first episode to use the Vulcan salute and to introduce the concept of farr. And the Vulcan salute, he learned that from, Nimoy learned it from the typical blessing that the rabbi would give when he would ask the people to turn their back, but he glanced back. And I'm doing it right now, so if you can see it. Now, Spock, the first officer of USS Enterprise, begins to exhibit unusual behavior and requests that he be granted leave on his home planet Vulcan. Captain Kirk and Chief Medical Officer McCoy, having witnessed one of their friends' outbursts, agree, and Kirk diverts the ship to Vulcan. En route, Kirk receives orders from Starfleet to travel to Altair 6 to represent the Federation at an inauguration ceremony for the planet's new president. Though Kirk instructs the crew to set course to Altair, Spock secretly changes course back to Vulcan. Kirk confronts Spock, who claims to have no memory of ordering the course change. This came mere moments after Spock threatened to kill McCoy, so we know he's not feeling good. Now, Kirk orders Spock to sickbay, where McCoy finds evidence of extreme physical and emotional stress, a condition that will undoubtedly kill him within 8 days if not treated. Spock is forced to explain that he's undergoing farr, a hormonal condition male Vulcans experience periodically throughout their adult life, and that he must mate or die. Kirk contacts Starfleet to request permission to divert to Vulcan, but is denied. Kirk disappoints his orders, believing that saving the life of his friend is more important than his career. So I'm laughing, but I'm reminded of some of the fan fiction about this back in the day, where Kirk basically gives himself up for Spock. No offense to gay people that are listening, but it's a stretch. If anybody's going to fuck, it's our female nurse doctor. She's more than willing. She's past on willing, and she's giving and willing at the same time. Get willing. A new word for today. Now at Vulcan, Spock invites Kirk and McCoy to accompany him to the wedding ceremony. He explains that the Vulcans are bonded as children so as to fulfill the farr commitment, and that his future wife or past wife, T'Pring, is to be his official mate. T'Pring arrives with Stan, a pure-blood Vulcan who actually showed up as a Romulan in the Balance of Terror, whom she prefers to Spock. T'Pau, a matriarch renowned as the only person ever to refuse a seat on the Federation Council, prepares to conduct the ceremony. However, T'Pring demands that the Caliph, a physical challenge between Spock and the champion she selects. To everyone's surprise, she chooses Kirk instead of Stan. Spock begs T'Pau to forbid it, as Kirk is unaware of the implication, but T'Pau leaves the decision to Kirk. Another champion will be selected if he refuses. Kirk accepts the challenge, only to learn that the battle is. And to me, ahead of time, we know she's trying to manipulate the situation. It's that apparent because, if you know your Vulcan women, you can read between the lines. Now, the two begin combat with Lirpa, a traditional Vulcan weapon. Kirk is challenged by Spock's strength and agility, even in his current state, as well as the thinner atmosphere of Vulcan. McCoy convinces T'Pau to allow him to inject Kirk with a triox compound to offset the effects of the Vulcan atmosphere. The battle continues with Spock eventually garroting Kirk with Anwun. McCoy rushes to Kirk's body and declares him dead and requests immediate transport back to the Enterprise. Now, Spock renounces his claim on T'Pring, but not before demanding an explanation from her. She explains that she feared losing Stan in the Caliphie. By choosing Kirk, T'Pring would be assured of having Stan in some capacity, regardless of the outcome. If Spock was the victor, he would release her from their marriage for having made a challenge in the first place, and if Kirk had won, he would not want her either. Spock, now free of the farr, compliments T'Pring on her flawless logic and returns to the Enterprise, warning Stan that having is not so pleasing a thing, after all, as wanting. And when Celo Lasky's character says, "Live long and prosper," he said, "I cannot. I have just killed my captain." Now, aboard the ship, Spock announces his intent to resign his commission and submit himself for trial by killing Kirk when he discovers Kirk is alive and well in sickbay and has a very emotional response. McCoy explains that the injection he gave Kirk was a new neuroparalyzer drug that merely simulated death. Asked about what followed, Spock states that he lost all desire for T'Pring after he thought he had killed Kirk. Kirk then learns that Starfleet, at T'Pau's request, has blatantly given the Enterprise permission to travel to Vulcan. Now, this is on every top 5 Star Trek Season 1 episode lists, or top 5, because you got 4 things going on here. You're learning more about Spock, you're learning more about the Spock-Kirk dynamic, you're learning more about Vulcan, and you're learning about the farr. You would not know in a million years, watching the first season of Star Trek, that the horny Vulcan motif would be played out in season 2. We didn't see this coming. It's comparable to the Borg showing up, as I call it, the Whoopi Goldberg era of Star Trek. The Borg could not have shown up unless somebody like Whoopi Goldberg's character has experienced it before. It's probably a top 5 moment in Star Trek history because all the Vulcan mythology starts with this. Now, for the franchise's 30th anniversary, TV Guide ranked Amok Time number 2 of the top 10 best Star Trek episodes. Now, many people have said it's the best episode of original Trek, including the Christian Science Monitor. Now, Gizmodo ranked Amok Time as the 12th episode of all the Star Trek episodes. Many people call it a very Spock-centered. The idea is, though, a lot of people have different versions of why this is important. A lot of people like the Kirk-Spock dynamic. They like finding out Arlene Martell was in it. She had her own followers at the time, if you can believe it, because she was considered one of the most beautiful actress of all time, very exotic. Probably the only actress in that era should have been bigger than what she was. Now, Gerald Fried's incidental music for the fight, titled "The Ritual Ancient Battle," the second Kroika, began a standard underscore for combat scenes in season 2. It was notably spoofed during the medieval time sequence in The Cable Guy by Jim Carrey. Now, Leonard Nimoy again first used the signature Vulcan salute in this episode, and the chart-topping British pop band T'Pau took their name from the Vulcan matriarch. And the Omegaverse genre, speculative erotic fiction, is known as being influenced by this episode. It started with this because no one was talking about Lost in Space, gay porn, or I Dream of Jeannie or whatever. It started here because when McCoy said that Spock has to have sex or have relations or he would die, that's the gay people watching or the romantic women saying, "How come we just don't fuck Kirk?" It doesn't work that way. It has to be another Vulcan. But he didn't say it at the time, right? It has to be another Vulcan. It doesn't work that way. I don't think Spock's father was even considered at the time. But the farr can be dangerous. I don't even want to get into the plot of Star Trek 3, but that's another story altogether. Anyway, if you like what we're doing with our Star Trek podcast, let us know what to like, comment, subscribe, or share. Amok Time could take 50 hours to describe it, but this is our shortened version. And live long, hold up your fingers, and prosper. Bye.